Hi everyone. We are back with another session on logical reasoning or critical reasoning as it is called elsewhere. Uh, Now, one of the most important sections, right? And so, in logical reasoning, what is very important is that you look at the questions first. Okay, that is my strategy. If you feel that reading the passage first and then going to the question works for you, then you can try my strategy for one simclat, see if it works, and you go with what really works for you. But my strategy for any paper based test is to look at the questions first. Why do I do that? If my logical reasoning passage has only inference based questions, okay, then that means I perhaps do not need to read for the central idea. But if the passage has a main idea or a primary purpose question, if the passage has a strengthen the argument, weaken the argument, if the passage has something like a flaw in the argument question, if the passage has which of the following is most analogous to the argument presented by the author, then we have to read for the main idea. Okay. So, if my questions are, let's say, what is the main idea of the passage? Okay, then I will read the passage from that perspective, that let me find out what is the author's primary point. Okay, so you divide these things into the passage into two things: facts and opinions. Okay, so if I tell you it was 40 degrees centigrade yesterday in Surat, it's a fact. But if I tell you it was very hot, now it is an opinion, right? Because somebody living in the middle of the desert might feel 40 degrees tolerable. Okay. Similarly, for any such thing, if I say, the traffic is very bad today, that is a matter of perspective. Somebody living in New York might say, you call this traffic? So, learn to differentiate between facts and opinions. Why? Because opinions will give you the main idea or the primary purpose. The author, whenever the author presents facts, the author has a certain end goal in mind, that he wants to show that, okay, with the help of these facts, I want to prove or kind of convince you of a certain point of view. And that point of view is what we are reading for. Now, in this passage, there is a question on main idea. So, what we'll do is we will read the passage for the main idea. Let's look at the passage. State governments measure student dropout rates primarily by tracking student enrollment data, and schools are under pressure to ensure that students either get admitted or are issued a transfer certificate. So, what seems to be the topic of the passage? Now, stop here. You've read the first sentence. Okay. Sometimes the first sentence isn't very indicative of the main topic, but in this case, it is. State governments measure student dropout rates by tracking enrollment data. So that means, how do state governments track enrollment data? This seems to be the topic. Now, the topic and main idea are two different things. The topic is what is being talked about. The main idea is what does the author want to say about the topic. Okay. So we know we are talking about how student enrollment, how student dropout rates are tracked by the state governments. And how do state governments track that? They track it by using student enrollment data. So schools are under pressure. So if I am running a government school or a low income private school in a certain pin code, I am under pressure that according to the census there are, let's say, 200 students in my pin code and I am the only school, then I should get those students on board. Okay. So I just want either an enrollment, or I want to issue a transfer certificate that this child no longer resides in this pin code, or this child doesn't want to study in this school. So I have given him a transfer certificate. Okay. Now, when students don't do either, they are listed as out of school children and are considered dropouts, something that is reflected on the school's permanent record. So when a student doesn't enroll, doesn't take a transfer certificate, that student is counted as a dropout, and that will reflect on my school. Now, I will personalize this such passages so that I'm better able to identify with the passage. So I'm running a school, and if the student doesn't enroll, doesn't take a transfer certificate, he's counted as a dropout, and it reflects permanently on my school record. Obviously, I don't want that to happen. Okay. The primacy on enrollment often means ensuring attendance takes a backseat. In the words of a low income private school headmaster, let them take admission first. Whether they attend or not is up to them. So, what happens? We are bothered only about enrollment. Okay? We are not bothered whether the child is coming to school. Okay? So, the principal also says, let them enroll. Whether they come to class or not is not my problem. Okay. So, this is here the author says the primacy on enrollment often means attendance takes a backseat. Okay. Clearly, there is a problem here. Now, this is an opinion statement. So far, we were dealing with facts. This happens, this happens, this happens. Now, the author says clearly there is a problem. So, the author has a problem with the way school school attendance is calculated. School attendance is calculated by school enrollment, not by real attendance. Enrollment data is no longer a strong enough indicator to measure dropout rates. Attendance data must be closely monitored as well. So now if you look at this, there is a problem here. Attendance data must be closely monitored as well. Now must be is an opinion indicator. For example, if I say you must work hard, it's my opinion, right? You may or may not agree with me. Okay. Relying solely on enrollment data can invisibilize this growing crisis. So there is a crisis, according to the author, that students get enrolled but do not attend classes, and the way to tackle it is to monitor the attendance record. Now, the author has this opinion. He calls this a growing crisis. Why is this a crisis? Student attendance affects learning outcomes. So, attendance is directly correlated to learning outcomes. Okay. To say that attendance below a certain level is akin to dropping out requires some explanation. So, if I say your attendance is less than 25%, that is as good as dropping out. He says, now, if I say this, I have to give you some justification for this. We looked into 30,000 students' attendance and academic engagement for the last academic year. These students were enrolled in government or low-income private schools in 7 cities and were under the intervention of a prominent NGO. So, the author gives us certain data that makes his position more credible. There are 30,000 students, 7 cities. So, what does he find out? We plotted student attendance and engagement levels on a reading comprehension scale to assess their literacy levels. The results we found, while not surprising, provided us with several useful insights. Now, here is my query now. So, what did you find out? Clearly, the author is of the opinion that low attendance is akin to no attendance. So, that means his data must support this, right? We don't have that data yet. It will come on the next slide, but I am already anticipating this. So, we anticipate, we personalize, we read for the main idea. The main idea is, dropout rates are tracked by enrollment data, and clearly there is a problem there. Let's look at the next slide now. Students in these low income schools were far from the RC levels expected from them at their grade level. So, if a student was in the 7th grade, he was already below what was expected. Next, the attendance data showed the problem very clearly. Students who were not attending classes are not engaging with the academic material. They are not reading their books, right? And finally, engagement data told us more. Students who do not engage with study materials simply do not learn. Students with less than 30% attendance and engagement had literacy levels as much as an entire grade level lower than their peers. Essentially, a 7th grader attending classes regularly should be able to read at a higher level than an 8th grade student with an attendance of less than 30%. So, they found that at less than 30% attendance, your learning really suffers, that you are actually at a level where you are 1 year behind your peers who are attending classes regularly. So, what is the gist of the argument? That enrollment data is not a reliable indicator of learning. It is attendance that is a reliable indicator of learning, right? Now, let's look at the questions. So, we already have the main idea. Okay. Now, we will look at the questions. Which of the following best represents the main point provided by the author in the passage? Low attendance leads to poor reading comprehension skills in students. This is true as per the passage. But does the author want to limit himself only to reading comprehension, or is it to learning? Reading comprehension skills are used as an example of learning. It is not the primary focus that, oh, it's only reading comprehension that I want to focus on. So, A is correct as per the passage but deviates from the main point. Private school students are no better than government school students in ensuring this should have been private schools are no better than government schools in ensuring student attendance. Okay. So, again, this is not about who is bad or who is good. It was about enrollment data is not a reliable indicator of learning. Okay. The present school enrollment metric is flawed and sweeps the real problem under the rug. Now, this looks like a good answer. It's a flawed way of measuring, student engagement, and because students don't attend school, they don't really learn. So, we have to track attendance data rather than enrollment data. C looks like a good answer. Let's keep this. Students with poor school attendance suffer from low literacy levels as compared to their cohort with higher attendance. This is also true as per the passage, but this is not the gist of what the author wants to say. The gist of what the author wants to say is that enrollment data is not a reliable indicator of learning. So, in this case, C is a much better option than any other option. Let's look at this question now. Now, this is strengthen the argument. We already know the argument. Let's look at what will strengthen the argument. States with poor attendance in schools offer remedial classes that are mandatory for all students that fail in one or more subjects. Okay, but does it really strengthen the argument? Not really. Okay. More than 70% of students with less than 60% attendance in school fail to finish their 10th class. So, if they have an attendance of less than 60%, 70% of these students, let's say there are 100 students with an attendance of less than 60%, and out of these 100 students, 70 will not finish their 10th standard. Now, this is a pretty solid piece of evidence that supports that enrollment is not enough. Attendance needs to be tracked. So, B looks like a good answer. We will keep this. The union government has mandated that monetary aid to private and government schools be pegged to retail inflation. Irrelevant to the discussion. Parents from poorer sections of the society frequently enroll their children in schools only for free midday meals. Again, this is irrelevant to the discussion that attendance is the true marker or true indicator of academic success. So, in this case, our answer should be option number B. Let's look at this question. Which of the following can be inferred from the passage? Not only the students but also the teachers and principals do not care about the negative outcome of low student attendance. No, we cannot infer this. One headmaster's statement that let them enroll first, we will worry about the attendance later, cannot be taken to be emblematic or true for everyone. So, A is wrong. Enrollment data used to be an indicator of literacy rates of a particular region in the early 2000s. Again, we don't have any data about the early 2000s. The state government believes that enrollment rates depict the literacy levels of the state. This seems to be a very good answer, because otherwise, why would they track the enrollment data? They feel once a student is enrolled, the students will end up studying. Okay. So, that is why they believe enrollment is linked to academic progress. So, C seems like a very good answer. Let's look at D. The educators in low-income private schools take student attendance very seriously. Nothing of the sort can be inferred from the passage. So, A, B and D cannot be inferred. The only possible answer is option number C. Now, let's look at another question. Which of the following, if true, weakens the author's argument? So, the author's argument, enrollment isn't enough to track academic progress, we need to track attendance. RC skills are the main indicator of the literacy rates of a student demographic. Again, RC skills were taken as an example. Now, even if we assume this to be true, this will strengthen the author's argument because they found that students with low attendance, of attendance less than 30%, had RC skills of lower than their peer students who were 1 year junior to them but attended school regularly. So, A will strengthen the author's argument. Many students attend school for the free midday meal and do not pay any attention during the classes. Now, this could be a good answer because he says, oh, peg everything to attendance. But here we have students attending the classes, but they are coming there only for the free midday meal. So, while the class is going on, they are not really paying attention. Now, you might wonder here, but the evidence in the passage is contrary to this. We have attendance linked to higher outcomes. That is okay. But this is new information. New information that weakens the author's argument is a good option. So, we will keep B. Let's look at C. No other revenues apart from schools and textbooks enhance the learning skills of a student. This again strengthens the author's argument that there is no other alternative to schools for learning. As per the latest data, students with attendance between 35 to 40% fare as poorly on tests as students with attendance between 30 to 34%. So, that means the author, this again shows that higher attendance will lead to higher learning outcomes and low attendance will lead to low learning outcomes. This again strengthens the author's argument. So, A, C and D in one way or the other strengthen the author's argument. Only option number B weakens the author's argument. So, the answer is option number B. Which of the following did the writer of the passage assume while carrying out the study about students' RC skills? Students from low-income private schools existing in metro cities face a lot of distractions. There is no discussion of distractions, no implication. So, A is out. The data gleaned from government and low-income private schools is representative of all students. Now, this makes sense. See, if I stop, let's say I go to South Bombay, okay, a very moneyed part of the city, and let's say I go to the Taj Hotel, and I ask every patron there, what is your annual income? Assuming everyone tells me their annual income honestly, I feel that, oh, I interviewed 100 people at the Taj and everyone's annual income, so the average annual income of these 100 diners was rupees 2 crore per annum. Therefore, everyone in Bombay is rich, right? What have I done? I have taken a small sample and I have extrapolated that data onto a larger sample size. Similarly, when the author takes data only from government schools and low income private schools and he says, well, low attendance is correlated to lower academic outcomes, he is assuming that this is true for all students, all schools at all income levels. For example, it is possible that a student has low attendance in school but has private tutors coming home for every class, for every subject. In that case, the student might be learning, right? He is not attending school, but he is still learning. So, the assumption of the author is that my data of government and private schools is indicative of the general trend. So, B seems like a very good answer option. Let's look at option number C. Other schools in the city have reflected a higher dropout rate due to students' varied interest in extracurriculars. Irrelevant. Higher dropout rate, extracurriculars, irrelevant to the passage. Suburban districts around these metro cities have seen a lower dropout last year. So what? This cannot be the assumption. Okay. So the answer in this case has to be option number B. So with this, we come to an end of today's session. Today was primarily focused on reading the passage for the main idea and then answering a lot of questions that were centered around the main idea. Hope this helped you. We will be back with another session. Thank you. See you soon.